So welcome to the fourth video. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about character. I'm going to make this video a little bit briefer, so it's just meant to be an introduction to character. Now when I first started writing in the mid-90s, there was a lot of talk about plot-driven stories, either for scripts or for novels. It was all about plot, and plotting was really important. It's still really important, but it seemed at the time in the circles I moved in and the courses I did that it was plotting that was really important. So that hasn't gone away, and I find actually plotting the most difficult part of writing. But now they talk a lot about building a story from the character up and having the character drive the story. I don't think it really matters which of those approaches is sort of correct, if there is a correct one, but I like the emphasis on character now because it reminds you as a writer that you have to think about the choices that your characters make, and they might not be choices that you would make or choices that you would want or make your characters make, but they're more real choices that a well thought out character would take over the course of a story. Now, to develop such rich characters, it's really important to think about your character and think about a little bit of a backstory. I don't know if they need to go too much into detail, but if there are significant events in that character's past life that will help drive a story, and it might be a weakness, it might be a terrible experience, it might be a source of strength, it might be something that they overcome that would give them some sort of emotional or psychological tool to help them escape the obstacles that you've put up that we talked about in the previous videos. That would be terrific for your character. It also means that your character makes sense in the context of the story. Now, if you are paying attention to your characters and your characters react to particular obstacles you've put up in front of them true to their own backstories and their weaknesses and their strengths, the story will also probably make more sense to your readers and will probably come across as more real and give your story a little bit more depth. Now, we're dealing with flash fiction, so that means that you would want to keep your references to your backstory in your work to a minimum, but if there are one or two significant moments that require a mention of a backstory, that would be terrific, but you would want to keep it brief in a flash fiction. But that doesn't mean that when you're preparing your characters' notes, you could write, several or a dozen points about their backstory that you could draw upon when you're writing your particular story. Now, when I write, I'm a bit old school in that I sort of have plot ideas that pop into my head, not character ones so much. I know some writers start off with one or two amazing characters and then stories fall around the characters. I tend to come up with plot ideas and I flesh those out a little bit. Then I go back to the drawing board and I kind of flesh out my characters and work out how they would match. And sometimes if I fleshed out a particular character one way and my intention was for the story to go this way, once I've developed my character, I might find that the character takes the story in a different direction, which is good for me. And I think that makes sure that my story is true to the characters, and I'm not sort of artificially making my character go in a particular direction. So your characters, you control your characters, but your characters aren't marionettes that you can make do what they will. If you've given them a particular backstory and sets of weaknesses and strengths, they will take the story and they will make decisions that suit them. So developing good characters is great for making sure that your story is cohesive and has that kind of depth. If you do have a great story idea but you don't have character ideas yet, I would sketch out a story, however briefly, and then go back and think about the appropriate characters to fit within that story. And once you've sort of thought about your character and they've come to life in your mind, go back to the story and think, well, would they react in the ways I anticipated? If you really want them to react that way, you might need to go back and work on the backstory and change that as well. So I think a good, true story with a bit of depth and a bit sort of emotional and psychological appeal does marry character development with plot really, really, really